The fields are all fire and smoke. It is the time for preparing to sow the wheat. They clean the ground and collect up the sticks of maize and small stems, mementos of the season that has ended, and make them into burning heaps. The earth is black and level, ready for the coming event. The men's bodies are bent over their hoes, some are walking behind the plows. The tops of the palm trees shudder in the gentle breeze and grow still. Under the sun's violence at midday, hot steam rises from the fields of watered clover. Every breath of wind diffuses the scent of lemon, orange, and tangerine. The lowing of an ox, the braying of a donkey, or the sound of an axe on wood. Yet the world has changed. I found Mahjub mud bespattered, his body naked except for the rag round his middle, moist with sweat, trying to separate a shoot from the mother date palm. I did not greet him and he did not turn to me, but went on digging round the shoot. I remained standing, watching him. Then I lit a cigarette and held out the packet to him, but he refused with a shake of his head. I took my cares off to the trunk of a nearby date palm against which I rested my head. There is no room for me here. Why don't I pack up and go? Nothing astonishes these people. They take everything in their stride. They neither rejoice at a birth nor are saddened at a death. When they laugh, they say, I ask forgiveness of God. And when they weep, they say, I ask forgiveness of God. Just that. And I, what have I learned? They have learned silence and patience from the river and from the trees. And I, what have I learned? I noticed that Mahjub was biting his lower lip as was his habit when engaged on some job of work. I used to beat him in wrestling and running, but he would outstrip me in swimming the river to the other bank and in climbing palm trees. No palm tree was too difficult for him. There was between us the sort of affection that exists between blood brothers. Mahjub swore at the small palm tree when he eventually succeeded in separating it from the trunk of its mother without breaking its roots. He heaped earth onto the large wound that was left in the trunk, lopped the stalks from the small plant and removed the earth, then threw it down to dry out in the sun. I told myself that he would now be more prepared to talk. He came into the shade where I was, sat down and stretched out his legs. He remained silent for a while, then sighed and said, I ask forgiveness of God. He stretched out his hand and I gave him a cigarette. He only smoked when I was at the village and would say, We're burning the government's money. He threw away the cigarette before finishing it. You look ill, he said. The journey must have tired you out. Your presence wasn't necessary. When I sent you the telegram, I didn't expect you'd come. She killed him and killed herself, I said, as though talking to myself. She stabbed him more than 10 times, and how ghastly. Who told you? He said, turning to me in astonishment. He bit off her nipple, I continued, giving no heed to his questions, and bit and scratched every inch of her body. How ghastly. It must have been Bint Majzub who told you, he shouted angrily. God curse her. She can't hold her tongue. These are things that shouldn't be spoken about. Whether they're spoken about or not, I said to him, they've happened. They happened in front of your very eyes and you did nothing. You're a leader in the village and you did nothing. What should we do? Said Mahjub. Why didn't you do something? Why didn't you marry her? You're the only one. You're only any good when it comes to talking. It was the woman herself who had the impudence to speak her mind. We've lived in an age when we've seen women wooing men. And what did she say? I said to him. It's over and done with, he said. What's the use of talking? Give thanks to God that you didn't marry her. The thing she did wasn't the act of a human being. It was the act of a devil. What did she say? I said to him, grinding my teeth. When her father went and swore at her, he said, looking at me without sympathy, she came to my home at sunrise. She said she wanted you to save her from Radharayas and the attention of suitors. All she wanted was to become formally married to you. Nothing more. She said, he'll leave me with my children and I want nothing whatsoever from him. I told her we shouldn't involve you in the matter and I advised her to accept the situation. Her father had charge of her and was free to act as he thought fit. I told her Radharayas wouldn't live forever. A mad man and a mad woman. How can we be to blame? What could we do about it? Her poor father has been confined to bed ever since that ill-fated day. He never goes out, never meets anyone. What can I or anyone else do if the world's gone crazy? Bint Mahmoud's madness was kind of a kind never seen before. I had to make a great effort so not to break into tears. Husna wasn't mad, I said. She was the sanest woman in the village. It's you who are mad. She was the sanest woman in the village, and the most beautiful. Husna wasn't mad. Mahjoub laughed, guffawed with laughter. How extraordinary, I heard him say amidst laughter. Take a pull at yourself, man. Wake up. Fancy you falling in love at your age. You've become as mad as Radharaya. Schooling and education have made you soft. You're crying like a woman. Good God, wonders never cease. Love, illness, and tears, and she wasn't worth a million. If it wasn't for the sake of decency, she wouldn't have been worth burying. We'd have thrown her into the river or left her body out for the hawks. I am not altogether clear as to what happened next. However, I do remember my hands closing over Mahjoub's throat. I remember the way his eyes bulged. I remember, too, a violent blow in the stomach and Mahjoub crouching on my chest. I remember Mahjoub prostrate on the ground and me kicking him, and I remember his voice screaming out, "Mad! You're mad!" I remember a clamor and a shouting as I pressed down on Mahjoub's throat and heard a gurgling sound. Then I felt a powerful hand pulling me by the neck and the impact of a heavy stick on my head.